So a lot of times the first step to becoming aware is reflection, because you're not able to be aware of it in the moment. You're only able to be aware of it once it's already happened. It's like when you're being able to like be a little bit aware when you're dreaming, like journaling about it can be really helpful, or just having conversations about it with people and like kind of like reflecting on what happened. And eventually you're going to start to be aware in the moment when it's happening. So I love that question. I think loving like practical applications to this stuff are really missed sometimes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Better at Beach Volleyball podcast. My name is Mark Burrick. Today, we are interviewing volleyball pro and health and nutrition coach Kim Hildreth, who comes from Florida, and she had a tremendous couple years on the NVL long ago. And in 2019, had an absolute breakout year on the AVP, and we're here to pick her volleyball health and nutrition brain and see what we can glean from her game, her experience. So I hope you guys are ready for a fantastic interview. And without further ado, I'd like to present my guest for the day, Kim Hildreth. What's going on, Kim? There's
Hey, how's it going,
rounds
Mark?
of applause. Thousands of people are firing up. Yeah, just want to say hi. We're talking off camera a little bit about credit card points for travel and these young rookies who don't even have a travel credit card and just giving away free points. And I know that you don't just have knowledge in travel, but you have a wealth of knowledge for volleyball, beach volleyball, as well as your company. I believe the email address is Health Coaching with Kim. Is that right?
Yeah, the website healthcoachingwithkim.com. Yep, that's my business.
Awesome. I can't wait to get into that. And I'd love to have you on the other podcast once we get running with that. It's called Entrepreneur-Athlete. It's people who turn their sport passion into their career. And maybe we can hook up again for that. But for today, I just want you to give like a small, brief little interview of when and why did you start playing, let's call it volleyball and beach volleyball.
I started playing volleyball because my older sister Tina played. I'm the youngest, and so my both my older sisters played. So I was always at the gym watching them play. And I think that's probably most people's sports story is like watching somebody else do it. So I started playing. Um, Totally fell in love. I don't know what it is about keeping the balloon off the floor that's like so fun, but that's always been just found an early passion for it. And then I actually started playing beach volleyball going into my freshman year of college in Michigan. I was playing in high school in the summers. I found out that there was more volleyball I could play in the summer than just volleyball camps, that I could play like grass tournaments and grass leagues and stuff. So
Mm.
I kind of got in with the local adult community when I was like 16, 17 years old and started playing some of those tournaments, like grass triples, grass fours.
So
And
you kind of you cut your teeth in Michigan.
yeah,
Was the move to Florida the recent as an adult? Was it for volleyball?
yes. So I ended up moving to Florida initially to play. I got to sneak in 1 year of beach volleyball in college, and I played at the University of North Florida. So that was my first move to Florida. And then kind of from there, I was finishing up my master's degree and needed to, get kind of an internship job with the university. And I landed a spot at the University of South Florida, which was what brought me to Tampa. And then when I moved to Tampa, I found Kristen Batt, Megan Wallen, Shara Harris, Raquel Ferreira, Pri Piandosa Lima. Like, I'm like, wow, there's like really badass volleyball players here. So I kind of started training with all those vets like OGs, and that's what really got me into it. And I definitely considered moving to California around that time too, but my family's in Michigan, so it's just super far. I
Mm.
was definitely broke from like finishing my master's and everything, and
So
I
you
was
figured,
paying
why
like
not pick up volleyball?
yeah, right. Yeah. I actually, well, when that's around the time I started playing NBL, and I actually started making more money on the NBL and playing like local Florida tournaments than I was making at my internship. And so as soon as I like capped out, I was like potentially going to continue working there. Like I was an academic counselor for the athletics department at the University of South Florida.
Okay.
Um, but I was, like an intern at that level. So I wasn't making hourly something. And I
Mm.
was like, I'm making more money playing tournaments and coaching. Like, volleyball's fun. I'm like 22. Like, I'm just gonna keep playing and see where this goes. And uh, it went well, so I kept playing.
That's awesome. I think you're one of the
Yeah.
few that goes from, their part-time job and can say, "Huh, I'm actually netting more from volleyball." So, I mean, huge kudos for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, living in Florida honestly is what made that possible because, there's tournaments in Florida every single weekend. I was making the finals pretty consistently, so I'm making anywhere between like 200 and 500 bucks a weekend, like playing in tournaments. And then I was getting a buttload of experience, playing. Like I was still rather new to the beach game at the time.
Mm,
So I feel like I got a lot of games I mean, I think the first year I literally played like over 40 tournaments in one year. Um,
whoa.
yeah, like actually, like I'd play a full tournament on Saturday and then I'd play a full tournament on Sunday. And, now I'm like 12 games deeper into my veteran status.
That's
um,
unreal. I mean,
yeah.
I remember coaching this USA performance camp, and one of the coaches, because I wasn't I'm not very involved in juniors, and they looked at the girls, and they're just like, "Okay, just raise your hand." I forget what the conversation would happen, but raise your hand if you played over 50 tournaments, and everybody's hands went up. And I looked at the guy next to me. I go, "He said 15, right?" And he goes, "No, 50." And this was in like a 6-month period. They're like, because the thing was in the fall and they were talking about summer. And I'm like, wait,
Mhm.
raise your hand if you played over 50 tournaments this summer. And these juniors are doing exactly what you did, where they can get 50 tournaments in
Yeah,
in a few months in a summer. And I was like, that's obnoxious. How is that even possible in a summer? And they said, oh, well, the juniors now they have tournaments on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday because
yeah,
it's summer. And my mind was blown. That level of experience. I go, this a 16-year-old has
totally.
more tournament experience than I do at 35. And I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot that summer. I think I played, if you look at my AVP America list of like partners, it is like a mile long. I played with so many people that year and really like learned, I think I just learned how to win,
Mm,
and I learned a lot of different kinds of volleyball. And like the more you learn about your side of the net, like I played a lot of small ball, I played with brand new blockers, I played with veteran blockers who might not be as quick. I learned a lot of like stuff on my side that helps me, play against teams like that now because I know what it's like, so I
mm.
feel like it gave me a lot of perspective on the game playing with so many different people. And it didn't hurt that I was only paying like 400 bucks a month in rent because it's Florida.
Florida.
So I was paying my bills and putting money away and having a great summer. So yeah.
That's so awesome. Can we
Yeah.
can we unpack that a little bit about learning from different types of players? Because
Mm,
I think i- there's two schools of thought, and one of them is that, hey, learn how to stick with a partner and figure out problems with them instead of kind of the typical, like, I guess, beach volleyball pro mindset in the US of something's wrong with my partner, so I'm going to find somebody else next week. That's why we didn't win, it can't be my fault. Instead of
mhm,
sticking in the discomfort like you had to in college or any other team for 4 or 5 years and say, this is my family. These are their quirks. This is what we have to fix or deal with.
mhm.
Do you think that there's more value in playing with multiple people, or is there more value in sticking through with a teammate and trying to figure out how to solve those uncomfortable problems?
Well, I did both. So I think there's a point in your career where you need to stick with a partner to really break into like a top 5 team kind of situation because like Olympic qualification wise, that's the way it works. Like you have to figure it out with a partner. But I think when you can and when you're younger and like still figuring out the game, like I think there is higher value potentially in playing with a lot of different people.
Mm,
Um, but it also takes a lot of maturity to play with the same person for a really long time because it becomes like a really intense relationship. So like you need to be able to communicate, you need to be able to like, have hard conversations, go through ups and downs with somebody. Um, so I definitely think there's value in both. But I do think like, I think you can reach the top either way, but I do think for me, like, I really, like, I still to this day, like, pull on lessons that I learned from, like, situations of playing with different kinds of people with different needs, and,
Mm,
like, the more like, I feel like the more I've played with different people, the more I've learned about, like, who my opponents are. Not necessarily like that my partner was my opponent, but, like, there's the more I know about how different people are and how they react differently to different situations, or, what they need on the set, or, like, what their options are on offense, or what they're capable of doing on defense because of their athletic ability, size, maturity, age, whatever. Like, I think I just have this, like, database of, ability to, like, strategize differently and, like,
mm.
know a little bit more intimately, like, who my opponents are because of that. Um, so I think it's very valuable. I'm kind of, like, halfway into already doing that this year, like, playing with a bunch of different people in the last, like, year or so too. So I think there's a lot to be learned by that for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of value in hearing how other people think about the game. It's
Mhm.
at a certain point, I think a lot of people think 98% the same.
Mhm.
At our level, when we're thinking about AVP, FIVB, I think there's all of those basics that everybody needs and has locked in. Where they want to pass. Setting, I think everybody's sets are usually pretty unique as far as what they want and what they expect. But there's always that other 2% when you play with somebody new that you're like, oh, that's what you do there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like we could try that. That's not what I do. And then your uncomfortable conversations that you talked about, I think those are crucial. And I don't see those enough. And I think they're tough for a lot of people to actually have that conversation of, no, I want to do this, instead of just kind of giving way to your partner, and where they're comfortable. So how do you broach the conversation if you're in a situation where you want a completely different thing in a play than your partner thinks is right or
Mhm.
thinks is correct? How do you tackle that?
I have definitely had that situation happen with, like, a variety of different partners and personalities. I think it's especially hard when it's a game time decision, an important match with someone you don't know very well, and,
Mm,
like, I'm like, let's say you and I are playing together and we're, like, in the finals of a qualifier. This game is to get in, and it's like, okay, like, I think our best strategy is serving this person this way and doing this on them. And you're like, no, I really believe, like, I know this other person really well and doing this way. And I think, like, what I've learned, like, and failed at, honestly, like, a few times in that, like, in just, like, fully giving that to my partner or trying to fully take it on myself, is I personally think, like, there's never really a right or wrong answer. I feel like when somebody feels really strongly about something, it's like committing is the most important part. But I think where people get tripped up the most is, however you make that decision, like, personally, or whatever the leadership dynamics are on the team. I think both players need to commit to it and then be open to, like, learning from what you did so that you can adjust your strategy as necessary. And I think what I've failed at before and I watch other people fail at is, like, not paying attention enough and, like, getting stuck and stubborn enough in what you were doing and, like,
mm,
thinking that it's working when, like, there's a huge difference between, is it working? Like, what does working mean? Does working mean that we're scoring points? Because in my opinion, I think no matter how you're scoring points, it's working. And I think a lot of people get stuck on, like, well, we're digging her,
yeah.
so it's working. And I'm like, well, are you transitioning and putting balls away?
Yeah, we're not a
Like,
transition team. Yeah.
maybe it's just not on that day, or
Mm,
maybe the way you're digging. Like, I think for me, that's a really hard one because, like, everybody has that one thing when they play that, like, if they do that one thing really well, that they're playing great, even if the rest of the game sucks. And for me,
what's
that's
your thing?
defense. Defense. If I'm digging balls, I'm balling.
Yeah,
If I
okay.
can't put a ball away to save my life, who cares? I'm digging. Like, it's kind of like I don't know, sometimes it's like an ego thing. It's like, you can't put anything down on me,
I love that.
Um, and, I've had to check myself and have gone, when I go back and watch film on some games that I've lost, like, in important matches, it's like, yeah, I'm digging, but, like, I'm digging really difficult balls, and we are basically consistently in and out of system, like,
Mm,
transition situation, so we're giving the other team a free ball back and they're scoring right away, or, like,
okay.
I'm not able to, whatever happens. The set's really difficult or the hit was really difficult, so we made an error, whatever, and I think a lot of people will look at that and be like, "Oh, well, we're digging the balls, like, we just need to do better," and I'm like, "Well, you're not doing better," and, like, the game goes by like that, so, like, something that needs to change,
Yeah.
and I think that ability to, like, pay attention is what makes or breaks, like, top players, and I think, getting to live in Florida and, like, in the last couple years since Larissa's lived here, like, she started playing every single Florida tournament, no matter how much money was on the line or where it was, like, they literally played every tournament, and so I got to play Larissa, like, 15, 20 times in the last, like, 2
Hmm.
years, and I don't know how many
Larissa,
people can
who's got
say.
like 50 something world champion FIVB championships
Yeah,
and has
Larissa,
been.
who's the Misty May of Brazil, like,
Yes, and the
yeah,
the players who don't know her in our country or in Florida who are getting to play her in tournaments, like, she's an absolute legend, and everybody should go over there and kind of thank her for what she did in volleyball and what she's still doing.
literally still
Yeah,
doing. Yeah, I
yeah.
know. So I think, getting that kind of, like, really high level experience, like, so much over the last 2 years has really taught me a lot about that because you can tell, like, she is 100% paying attention. Like, if you go back and watch, like, your film against Larissa, she is counting in her head every single time in every situation that you hit this certain ball or why you did something this way, like, and at the end of the game, she's gobbling that up and putting it in your face,
Mm,
like, and so I think that ability to adapt is more important than the, like, partnership dynamic of, like, what are we gonna try? So I think what I've been learning in the last, like, couple years is, like, it doesn't matter to me, like, I used to need to control it, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it, so I like to control it, but, like, it's not worth, like, my partner not feeling confident in
mm.
what they have to say, so if my partner feels really strongly, I'll usually, like, be like, "Alright, let's do it," but, like, maintain the ability to, like, pay attention and be like, "Okay, great, this is working," or, "Okay, no, this is not working, and let's try something else," you know?
That's big because you can get into the big ego situation of just trying to wait out your partner being wrong.
Yeah,
Where you
totally.
hold on to that and you're just like, "See, we lost another point." Mentally, you're even doing that, like, lip
Yes.
smacking of like, you know, if we were
Yes.
serving the other person, instead of trying to figure out the person that you are serving or
Yep.
whatever strategy you got going, say, "Okay, or this is the strategy we are within. So let's solve all those problems and let's figure out why they're hitting certain spots and what I can do to prevent it within this strategy."
100%, and I think that ego thing is really important, and that's, I think, something that playing with a variety of people can really give you, is just everyone responds differently to conversations like that, and the more mature you are and able to navigate those conversations, the better, which is honestly, like, why I feel like, my personal business, health coaching, has been, like, really successful and why it's something that I really enjoy because I do feel like I have a lot of experience with those conversations and what I end up doing and teaching and health coaching is, like, very similar to what I do in the sport. So it's kind of, to me, it's one of the most interesting things, like, about humanity is just, like, the dynamics of how people work and, like, how people communicate and converse, and, so I could nerd out on that all day.
It's so funny you say that because, like, the thing that I think in the last 2 years that has made me a better player and a better coach and definitely a better person overall, was the marriage counseling that, me and my wife got pre-marriage, where they
Mhm.
talk about bringing up the things that you think about differently and, sharing what energy you have and sharing whose role which role belongs to who, and the ability to actually just sit and just discuss those dynamics instead of even the X's and O's of volleyball, you know, and understanding that all of us come from a different background. We have a different story. So even if you think or you're statistically proven that you're right, you cannot say you're right, when in a battle against your teammate, because
Your
this is
wife's
your
probably beaming
team.
right now. She's so proud.
I think I dove into some more books than she did. She had it. She had the natural gift, and I was like, all right, let's study. How do I become a good
Yeah.
person?
I mean, I totally agree because I think at the end of the day, everybody knows how to play this sport.
Mm,
Like I think even like rec players like are really knowledgeable about the inner workings of the sport. And I think the ability to I think emotional intelligence is one of the most important skills in this sport. And I think that there's so many people out there that are just like, I'm not a good communicator. Like,
mm.
I'm not good at talking about my feelings. And it's like, okay, I hate when people say I'm not, because then it's like, well, that's part of who you are. So that's like a part of who you were born to be is like someone who's not a good communicator. Like I really don't
Right.
agree with that. I
Mm.
don't think there are very many things in life that are not practicable skills. And I absolutely think emotional intelligence is one of them. I have done it myself. I have helped other people do it. Like I'm 100% like convinced it is teachable and practicable and really important in beach volleyball.
For the guys out there, and maybe some of the other ladies, what the hell do you mean by emotional intelligence?
Yeah. So
Can you
great. I
break
teach a
that
lot of guys
down
this.
to the to the basic? Because what emotional intelligence to somebody who grew up the way that I did,
Mhm.
it doesn't have a meaning. It sounds made up, and it's an incredibly, to me at least, maybe I'm one of the only guys out there who thinks this way, but it is the vaguest of explanations for what somebody has to be, to match your Bumble profile or whatever. I need somebody who's emotionally intelligent. Okay.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
cool. I
so,
want to
so
be like that, but how?
yeah, so how do you describe emotional intelligence, and then maybe you could relate it back to volleyball?
Yeah. I think emotional intelligence is the ability to, I think it's a mind body connection thing. I think it's the ability to feel in your body when you're feeling something, and then also the ability to communicate it that this is what I'm feeling. And so part of the skills that you need to be to have a high level of emotional intelligence is you need to have a good enough vocabulary, frankly, to do it. And I think that's one of the things that people struggle with the most is like like I'm frustrated or I'm upset or you're mad. Like they're just very like basic emotions that people
Mhm.
usually use to describe their feelings instead of like, if you're mad, are you actually like disappointed or are you lonely or are you like, unfulfilled? Like these are very different meanings of words, and the ability to say what you're feeling and know that in yourself. And then the empathy to like hold space for somebody else sharing what they're going through, or even just have the sensitivity to notice that somebody else is feeling something and be able to communicate. So I think the skills that go with emotional intelligence that aren't talked about enough are communication skills. And those are so practicable, like you can learn a new vocabulary in like a couple of days. Like you can start adding new words to
Could
that,
you give me could you give me an example of a communications, like, let's go with 2 of them, like a specific skill, because again, this becomes, when you say communication skills, emotional intelligence, for a lot of people, I think these are very vague statements. If you say you need to work on your passing skills or your volleyball skills, you can say, okay, I need to get her at passing. I need to get her better at passing float serves. So,
Mhm.
what is one example of a communication skill, and how would somebody practice it?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll give you a very real volleyball example of when I watch
Great.
this happen and when I watch people struggle with emotional intelligence is you are getting picked on. You are getting served every ball, and for whatever reason, like, it's not your day, or maybe you're playing, someone's watching you play that like, your boyfriend's there and he's never been there before, and you're really nervous because
Mm,
you want him to think you're good, or it's like your first opportunity to get to play with someone who's better than you and you're like scared of messing up. And so like in the match, right, you're just like mentally not in the place that you like to be at, which happens to every single pro. 100%. I can't there's no way that this has not happened at least one time to everybody who's ever
Right.
played beach
Or
volleyball.
like that blocker who was always who had your number in 3
Yeah.
matches, and you just think that he owns you for some reason.
Yes. So,
Um,
like, emotionally, you're not in your best state to play, and so everybody goes through that. So you're getting picked on, and as a partner, having played with a zillion different people, like, I have watched a lot of people be in that situation. I've played with a lot of people who have played a lot less volleyball than me, so I've been in the role of, like, my partner's getting served a lot in my life, and being able to watch them struggle with, like, not knowing what they need and not being able to communicate to me what I can do to help them, like, to raise their confidence, to make them feel supported. I mean, for me, like, when I'm in that situation, I know that, like, I need to feel like my partner has my back, like, no matter what. For whatever insecurities that I have, like, I need my partner to say, we're in this together. I'm here with you. No matter how bad you play, let's see how we can make it work. Like, we can still play like poop and win. And
those
so
statements
me,
would work for you? Like, those actual
yes,
statements would be your words of
yes.
encouragement. Is there
Shout out to
anything
anyone who ever wants to play with me.
we talk about this because we have a little form that we have people fill out, like the partner profile, and we have
Hmm.
our turn ons and our turn offs. Do you,
Hmm.
before we go to the next part of what you're saying, do you have any turn offs in that situation, that while you didn't side out 3 balls in a row, is there anything that that if somebody said at that moment, you would just want to punch her in the face and you'd be done, you like done on the court?
um, I think for me personally, I it's pretty hard to push me to, like, a real turn off. Like,
Mm,
I think I've seen it a lot of it. I've experienced a lot of it. Like, I've had a partner who, like, just didn't talk to me. Like, she just was upset about something and literally was, like, not gonna call the ball, not gonna give me a call when I'm hitting.
mm,
She was, like, having just whatever, she was going through a lot. And,
okay.
so, probably the biggest turn off is, like, that they would just, like, be like, "Yeah, I'm done. I don't wanna play this game anymore." Like, I think that would I'd be like, "Well, I'm still gonna I guess I'll play 1 on 2. I'll see if I can figure it out," but, like,
Okay.
I would probably wouldn't play with them after that.
So
Um,
silence, cold shoulder is probably
yeah,
your worst.
avoidance in
Okay,
general, I think. Yeah.
okay. I
I
think
I
some
like to
guys
be
are
around
kind of
people.
comfortable with that.
True.
There are people who, when their partner just like it goes quiet, it really sucks, especially if it's something different from what their norm is.
Mhm,
If you're playing with somebody who's just always quiet and stoic and just like walks back and doesn't say anything, then you're used to that. But if you're
mhm,
used to the partner who's got energy, who's giving you vocal cues and a little bit of body language, and then there's a shift in that where there's zero communication, uh, that's bad. But I think there's room for people to be successful without being communicative,
yeah,
as
people do it
well.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see Taylor Crabbe talk very much.
All
Like,
right.
he's pretty smooth sailing, and pretty level, like, not much cheering, like, everybody has their different states that they're gonna, like, succeed, at a high level
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about skills for how to like an actual communication skill that you're talking about for volleyball, and you're
Yes.
giving an
So
example.
in that situation where, like, if you and I are playing together and I can tell, like, you are shutting down, you are emotionally, like, in a different state than I'm used to seeing you play, like, two things need to happen on your side and on my side. Like, on your side, the more you are able to recognize in yourself that you're shutting down, and, like, that's the first step. If you don't even know it's happening, which I've been there and I've watched people go through it, like, you go through the whole match and you were completely shut down and you go back and watch the video and you're like, "This is, like, a different player than, like, all these other videos that I have," right?
I've been a
Like,
part of that.
yeah, yeah. So being able to be self-aware enough to recognize when your emotional state is changing is part of emotional intelligence, and it does take practice. But like, I think watching film is a great way to do it volleyball wise, but I think it's a it's a practicable skill, like, literally 24 hours a day of your life.
How do you
And then
practice it?
practicing being aware is, like, asking for feedback from other people is a huge one. Like, you can
Oh,
ask, yeah, you
okay.
can ask from, I think, a really, uh eye-opening exercise for a lot of people is ask your 5 closest people in your life, how they see you respond when you're being vulnerable.
Oh,
Like,
that's scary.
when you feel vulnerable. Yeah, it's good feedback. Um,
How they ask you feel when you're feeling vulnerable, or how they think you respond when
yeah,
you
and
feel
how they can
vulnerable.
tell what you do typically when you feel vulnerable, and that like, the more you talk about it, the more you can become aware of it, and so a lot of times, the first step to becoming aware is reflection because you're not able to be aware of it in the moment, you're only able to be aware of it once it's already happened. It's like when you're being able to, like, be a little bit aware when you're dreaming, and the
Yeah,
way
you're
you be yeah, the way
I've
you
had some of my
practice.
worst dreams. I actually got disappointed in myself from a lucid dream. I was like, I've
Yeah,
never patted my own back on my creativity or my, like, artistic ability, and I was swimming in the ocean. I know this is a side story, but,
this is
I
great,
was
I'm
swimming
ready.
in the ocean, and, there was, like, I was able to breathe for a really long time underwater, and I was like, "Oh, huh, bah," and then I saw this, sea creature, and I looked at it, and I said, "There is no possible way that you are real." And then I realized that I was dreaming, and I was, like, disappointed. I go, "Mark, this is the best your imagination could come up with. You have 0 artistic ability, but, hey, we're still dreaming, so let's see what's going on." And then I just, like, swam around for the rest, but I remember, like, being like, "You suck at art, Mark," because I couldn't dream of a good creature.
Uh,
So that was
that's
me
aw
being
but yeah,
terribly vulnerable, so vulnerable.
that was great. I love the anecdote, and I think everybody needed a little more insight into your life just now. Yeah, but so lucid if you look it up, if you Google, like, "How can I lucid dream?" It'll tell you, like, set an alarm in the middle of the night to wake you up and journal immediately what you remember dreaming, and so it's the same exercise. It's like, you can't do it while you're dreaming, right? You have to stop dreaming and then write about it, but
Mm,
the more you do that, your brain starts to connect faster and faster so that you will become aware while you're doing it. It's just like, if someone's trying to get you to pass better and they're like, you need to lock your elbows when you pass, right? You might need like if I'm in your one of your camps, Mark, like I might need you because I can't think about it while the ball's in the air coming to me. So every time after I pass, you tell me, Kim, lock your elbows. Oh, shoot. Okay. Yeah.
mm.
So enough times of you telling me after it happens, eventually I'm going to be able to do it while it's happening. Same concept. So, like, how do you become more aware of your emotional state, of when you're shutting down, of what you're doing, is a lot of reflection. And like journaling about it can be really helpful, or just having conversations about it with people and like kind of like reflecting on what happened. And eventually you're going to start to be aware in the moment when it's happening. So I love that question. I think loving like practical applications to this stuff are really missed sometimes. Yeah.
And you also said, vulnerable, like when you're feeling vulnerable. I don't think a lot of people, maybe again, I'm alone in this, but I don't understand what feeling vulnerable is.
Okay, so practically what feeling vulnerable is like vulnerability is the moment when you put yourself out there,
Hmm.
that like something's on the line and outside, like someone else could take the thing that you're putting out there and hurt you with it. And so I think Brene Brown has a really great definition of vulnerability that I probably just totally butchered. But she does a really good job. There's a thing on, I think it's on Netflix. It's called The Call to Courage that I think anyone who ever wants to play sports should watch. And it's basically about like stepping into the arena, and being vulnerable is being willing to step into the arena and put yourself out there. So I'll use myself as an example, like I could go, step on the volleyball court, and like I have had great results in the past and I've had, not great results in the past. And last year wasn't my best year on the AVP. I was in the main draw, but didn't win a match in the main draw.
Mm,
And like the fact I could be like, I didn't like that. It didn't feel good. I definitely didn't feel good about it. Like I had a lot of, shame. I didn't like, and I was like, I'm going to quit volleyball. Or I could continue to step into the arena and put myself out there and be like, I could, go to Austin and go 0-2 again and feel all those same feelings and everybody could watch me do it. Or I could just quit and not walk away, and like not be vulnerable. So me putting myself out there for everyone to see that, or like people that are important to me to see, that I could fail, is like putting myself in a vulnerable position. And I think in the volleyball game, beach volleyball, you get forced to be in a vulnerable position. Like if
Mm.
I'm going to serve you every ball, Mark, every ball, I'm going to tell you before the match, I'm going to serve you every freaking ball. And if you are this much nervous about it, you are vulnerable by staying in the match, you know?
Yeah. And
So I think
you could
it's,
escape that vulnerable position by, I think, as somebody coached, like, I think junior girls a lot,
mhm,
um, I noticed the giggle, or the "This is just fun."
mhm,
This
yeah,
is, I don't really care. I'm gonna make a joke out of it. Became an escape from what you're saying was
100%.
vulnerability. So instead of seeing them struggle and potentially fail, they would escape it by doing the giggle and
Yeah, I'm hurt, I'm not taking
making
it
it funny.
seriously, it's not that important to me, but when you step on the court and you say it's really important to you and you're actually giving your all, that's putting yourself in a vulnerable position. And I think everybody who wants to play volleyball at a high level, or even the highest level that they can be, whatever level that might be, I think you're putting yourself in that position. I think it's very brave, and I think you'll learn a lot of life lessons from it.
So if I were to translate vulnerable is essentially a wager on yourself where you know it's not a sure bet.
Yeah.
And maybe emotionally, do you have an example of that between just two people, instead of volleyball? Because like showing up to a tournament and playing and trying your hardest and telling everybody that you're playing in a tournament and that you try really hard, that's,
Mhm.
I can see that as putting yourself in a vulnerable position where you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I know that I'm putting myself on spotlight. I know that everybody knows that I'm working as hard as I can and I might still fail. So they might see my hard work as unvaluable or in some way, you know?
Well, yeah, and I think everybody could resonate with the feeling of being scared that you're just not good enough. That like
Mm,
you could work just as hard and do all the things. You could put all your team together. You could be doing every single possible thing that you could be doing. And you know what? Like you still don't get the results. So that must mean that I'm just not good enough. And I think that results oriented mindset is what stops people from putting themselves in that position,
mm,
because they think the only thing that they have to gain is either it all or lose it all. It's all or nothing. There's nothing to be gained by actually trying in the process, even if you fail. So, an example between two people, I think, is just, it can be the smallest things. Like, I think there can be really small moments of vulnerability. It can be, you know, uh, me telling my husband, like, I had a really long day, or actually even easier, like I could be like, hey, Mark, I want to play with you this season really bad. And I'm like, not gonna, I'm gonna wait for you. You can go through all your options, and I'm just gonna wait it out because you're my number one pick. And waiting for you to either accept or reject me is putting myself in a vulnerable position, whether or
yeah.
not anybody else knows that, because and
Mhm.
it's clearly important to me that you know. So I think vulnerability can be, and usually is, like very little moments that can make or break, you know, relationships for sure.
How do two friends become vulnerable with each other? You know, I'm still, I don't know why I don't understand this concept
Mhm.
of being vulnerable. That I do understand, saying like you're gonna try as hard as you can for absolutely everything, and then but that's with a lot of people looking at you. But in between two people or two like friends,
Mhm.
I don't know. Is it like admitting that you have a problem with an addiction? That to me, okay, that might be expressing some vulnerability and hoping that your friend doesn't just be like, well, you're weak, or they showing that they still have some support. But
Mhm.
what else aside from that could be an example?
I mean, I think the ability to fully be able to be yourself without acting around somebody is like expressing vulnerability to its fullest, really.
Mm,
So like, you and I know each other well enough. I would say like we're friends, but like we don't know each other super well. Like we don't spend a whole lot of time together. I don't know like a ton about your background or you about mine. So like even just between us, like I think like having a conversation where you have a thought that you're like, like I could share this, but like I'm not going to.
Mm,
That's like a moment where you choose to be vulnerable or not. And like I wouldn't say that every situation that you have that thought, like again, all or nothing mindset, I think is really not helpful in any situation. I don't think anybody could convince me that an all or nothing, unless you're like in war, maybe.
mm. Yeah,
But
because I've
like,
been told by friends and loved ones that I express my mind too much.
so yeah, and I can relate to that totally. And so, maybe being vulnerable is like, for me, sometimes being vulnerable is letting go of control, and like being okay with like, I'm not going to say something, or I'm not going to be the kind of, I'm not going to try to put my hands in something because it's actually scarier for me to like let somebody else take the wheel, you
Mm.
know? That's also being vulnerable. It's putting something that I'm not comfortable with in the hands of somebody else. Like, I'm about to look up this definition from Brene because it's really good. Does that
Well,
answer your question a little bit more?
it's getting there. It's
Okay.
getting there. To say that I fully understand it. Yeah, I guess I don't, and I know there's probably going to be a few hundred people just rolling their eyes saying, "How do you not understand?" Like,
Mhm.
but there are certain points where I definitely understand it, but then understanding towing the line of, well, how do you be yourself, express what you say. You don't offend people nonstop because you say what you think and what you feel. If I think something's stupid, I've been known to say I think that's stupid, Eh, and that makes them, that puts them on the line. And I have sacrificed friendships where I've been at the point where I say, you know what, I'm a better leader and a person, and I think that this person, while they need to hear it in order to be the best person that they are, and it might break our relationship, but no one else has the courage to tell them. And so I will put a relationship on the line to try to help somebody and
I
say,
think
like,
that's being vulnerable.
you might hate me for this, and here we go, because I think you need to hear it, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the friends that are the people in my life who are willing to challenge me when I'm not being the person that I say that I wanna be are the people that I would count as my closest friends. And that means that there's times like, right now, there's like a friend that I'm super close with that we had a misunderstanding and both sides we were hurt. And we still expressed, both of us, like, you are still one of my closest friends. We need to talk about this at some point, but like right now, like our relationship needs some space.
Mm,
And I think that that's where true relationships happen, when there's the ability to like change. Like real vulnerability can, and like real connection can handle change. And um so like it's just having the maturity to know that like relationships in life are going to ebb and flow, and like having the security in yourself enough to know that like it's okay if if some of my relationships change, like that I think is like a high goal to reach. And I think like can show you like really what people in your life, are really there and really not. And like some
mm,
people I feel like think vulnerability is like this person that I can just like share everything with and they know all my deep dirty secrets. And I definitely used to think that way too, but I don't anymore. I think some of the people that I would say I've been the most vulnerable with and they with me, I don't know that. I don't know all those things about them. There's just not like the ability and the time, I think, to like to have that relationship with everybody. So I really think it's a matter of just like that person is able to bare their soul to you when and if the time comes, or like put is willing to fight through when they're feeling hurt, like to find connection. Like I think that's vulnerability.
mm.
Um, so I think there's a lot of different dynamics that it can be, but I think it boils down to really like being willing to put yourself out there when you'd rather not, knowing that you could get hurt if you do.
Yeah. I guess that maybe that would be one of your challenges when you're coaching, both your life and your health and your wellness students, is trying to help them navigate the line between just inappropriately opinion expressing and being comfortable with sharing your thoughts and feelings uh,
100%.
with somebody. And there's got to be a difficult line there that I think a lot of people toe or they don't know. But
See,
maybe the people who are super angry and super opinionated, there's an argument from our definition here that those might be the most vulnerable people. Or there's an argument against it saying, well, you're not being vulnerable because you're just pushing people away and shutting them down, and they don't get to have an opinion that challenges yours. You know?
I think both. I definitely think I think people think it's so complicated, but from my experience, like I literally like to the T was just like have a client right now that I'm working on with that. Like they're like so uncomfortable with what to share, when to share. Like every single time that we talk, she's like, should I have said this or do I do this? And I'm like, I cannot tell you what's best for your life. I
Mm,
can give you my perspective on what I think socially, but honestly, my opinion is doesn't matter because what matters is you feel good about yourself. And I think the problem that most people have is like they have lost so much trust with themselves by not speaking from an authentic place. Like how you said, you were like, man, I was willing to put my relationship on the line because this mattered to me. Like that is like deep in your soul. You can't like not you're not hiding from it. You're looking at it and you're knowing that like this could suck, but like if I don't, I'll regret it, you know?
mm,
And like having that moment where I think, I actually wrote a blog on it one time. Like I think the moment of living with no regrets is when you're completely authentic to yourself. Like I sometimes I like to use like if you're in a dating relationship, well, if you actually are dating to like find a life partner versus like dating for fun because you just like companionship and both are valid, but like if you're in a place where you're looking for a life partner, like you will probably have regrets if you don't treat them like your life partner from the first time you start dating. Like as soon as you
mm.
guys agree that you're on the same commitment level, if you're like waiting to see if it works out to actually be acting the way you want to be, you're probably going to have regrets. But like it would hurt more if you were all in and treated them exactly like you would treat, the person in your life and they still left you. Then you'd
Yeah.
be like, well, that hurts a lot because I put it all on the line and they still left and I
And,
wasn't enough. It kind of goes back to what we said earlier. Like I just
and you
wasn't
don't
enough.
feel like you're controlling the narrative at that point. So you're just like, no, it can't just be who I am. Like I have to be able to control this situation socially. And then when you do that, you're also months, weeks, whatever, years later, you probably start thinking, well, now I can't really go back on that. So you've created this place where if you start acting in a different way or you start acting
Mhm.
more like your true self, then you're kind of admitting that you were lying. And then
Yeah.
you're calling yourself a liar in front of that person by changing your mind or shifting, which is
Yeah. And
unfortunate
it's,
because I think people should be able to change their mind, but they shouldn't put out something false either.
I mean, I think a lot of people end up putting out something false because that's what they needed to do to feel safe in their
Mm,
life. And I think the moment that people stop having to live in survival mode for whatever reason, there's like a variety of reasons that people like stop being authentic to themselves, like childhood, Freudian idea stuff,
mm,
but like and therapy is a good time and place for things to like kind of figure that out and figure out who you are. But I think the difference in what I do from therapy is that you've kind of figured some stuff out and like you have to at some point decide I'm just not willing to like live in survival mode anymore. Like I deserve to live a life that I'm like fucking happy.
mhm,
Like that I will like why should anybody or any idea that somebody has of me stop me from being the happiest person that I could be and like living the most fulfilled life that I can live? And like that is like you said at the beginning, it is an actionable thing. Like you can make choices every day to start becoming the person who you want to be. You can't change who you have been. That's therapy. Figure that out, process it because you might need to use some of those tools that you learned to
mm,
become the person you want to be or to learn why or what's stopping you from becoming the person you want to be. Like you might be hitting this wall and you're not really sure why. And you're like, why can I never consistently work out? That is like one of the reasons people come to me all the time.
hmm.
And figuring out why, or like, this is a great example, actually. I have a client recently who went through, why am I not cooking for myself? And like, she's like, when we first come into the program, nutrition is the most important thing for her. And she's like, I just hate to cook. And I'm like, okay, that's totally fine. Like, not everybody needs to cook. You don't have to cook to be healthy, or to feel healthy about yourself. And so we spent a couple weeks of her experimenting with taking some, like getting food service delivered or whatever, like, so she didn't have to cook. And she's like, okay, I feel like I'm eating enough. I'm eating, for fueling myself. I'm eating, feeling pretty good about like the amount I'm eating, but I'm still not feeling like it's fueling me correctly. And I'm not sure why. And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, well, like for her, it was right. It's not right for everybody to like track what you're eating and like count your macros or whatever. But it was a really good educational experience for her to realize, oh my gosh, like I am not eating very much protein. Like I'm eating a bunch of fat, like, and no wonder my digestive system feels a little funky because I'm not digesting the fat really well, whatever. So she's like, like I know I can control more of what I eat if I cook for myself. And I'm like, well, why don't you cook for yourself? So we spent a whole session figuring out, like, every time she was like, well, here's a reason. Here's a reason. I'm like, well, why? What happened? Why are we just like dig, and we get to the point where she's like, I watched my mom like hate cooking and be in charge of the kitchen, and like my
Oh,
dad, it was like gender role thing. Like it was very expected in her family that the women in the family were supposed to be in the kitchen. And even between her and her brother, like her brother was never expected to do chores in the kitchen and she always was. And her mom was like, well, you're a girl. I don't know what to tell you. And so now, as an adult, independent, badass woman who has her own business, she's like crushing everything. She's still like hearing like this rebellion in her head of like, I will not be a woman who's like stuck in the kitchen. And I'm like,
mm,
okay, so don't be a woman who's stuck in the kitchen. That doesn't mean that, she's like, well, if I start dating somebody and they see that I'm a good cook, they're going to never cook. They're going to be like, well, I'm just not good at it. So you must do it. And I'm like, well, then just don't date somebody like that.
yeah,
And it's like,
yeah, or have that
it's like,
conversation when you get to it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like her realizing that that was what was holding her back from cooking, literally was the moment that she was like, this is crazy. I know I'm completely in control of the kind of relationship that I'm going to have, and I will never be in the same position as my mom because I won't let it happen. And that doesn't mean that I can't also be a badass cook. And all of a sudden, she started cooking for herself.
That's cool. That's
It was
cool.
really cool. Yeah. And it's like, so you need to understand your past to be in control of your future. But like, I think the biggest thing that holds people back is like, not knowing, and kind of going way back to the awareness stuff that we were talking about. Like, if you're not even aware, like you can't change stuff that you're not aware of.
Right. I think that's the people's biggest fear of therapy is you're going to go back, you're going to dive in and you're going to pull something up out of nowhere that's going to change my opinion on something or make me hate somebody or make me blame somebody when that's not often what happens. You just kind of look at some initial reactions to things and you don't assess blame. You just
Mhm.
say, "Oh, maybe this is an original reason why I think this way." And that's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to make changes from there. You don't have to blame anybody or throw anybody under the bus. But you could at the very least, you could have the idea of a root cause, assess it, and say, "Huh, yeah, maybe I didn't like that originally because I was in that situation or because I saw somebody be in that situation." Uh,
Yeah. And I think
and
the thing that stumbles people the most is like that, because of something that happened that you weren't totally conscious of,
mm,
you start developing behaviors because of that. And then you get to, when you're a kid, a teenager in college, when none of us were aware of anything that we were doing, and then you get to be the point where you're like 30, 40, 50 years old and you are like, I am so well practiced. I have put in thousands of hours of passing without locking my elbows. Like, you know? And
yeah,
it's like, why am I not a good passer? But I'm so good at this, and I'm actually pretty good passer like this because I've practiced it so much. But like, there's a whole nother level of improvement that's available to you if you just lock your elbows. But it's going to be
mhm,
hard because you've never practiced that before. I love using volleyball analogies in my sessions.
Right, no, because you had, like, some random elbow injury when you started volleyball, like, maybe that was happening, you get, like, one
Yeah.
hyperextension feel, and you're like, "Oh, that stung, like, so now I can never leave my arm straight," and you figured it out,
And maybe no one ever told you because you'd never really gotten a good coach. No one ever told you that locking your elbows would actually make you a better passer.
mhm,
And then you're like 40 years old, 10 or 15 years into your volleyball career, and you're like, what?
yeah,
That's
and
what
all your
happens in my
partners look at
sessions.
you and like, that's wrong, but they don't have this the question of, "Why don't you straighten your elbows?" No, they just look at you and say, crappy passer," instead of looking at you and say, "Have you ever tried straightening your elbows?"
Yeah.
It you know? I
Yeah.
think a lot of partnerships could do better for that if there's a little exposure, a little call out of, "Here's what I think you do poorly. Here's how I
That
would
takes
beat you."
vulnerability
It does. Yeah, and especially with new
because
partners
they
you've
could
been
be like,
playing against
screw
for a while.
you. I know better than you. Or like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want your advice, you know?
Right.
So the vulnerability part wrapped back up.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's nice. It's a little advantage, and I did this little exercise. I guess it was 2, 3 years ago, where I shot a message to my last five partners, and I shot a message and I said, "Hey, I just want your honest opinion. You don't have to take long. You don't have to go short." But I go, "What was the worst part about playing with me?" That's all I want to know. What was the worst part
Mhm.
about playing with me? Um, and it turned out that like my uh, expectations of each point were just super super high for each point, and that there is always this feeling of pressure, and that somebody like could or should be doing more. And yeah, I put all that pressure on myself my whole life of like should be
Mhm.
doing more, could be doing more. And I can imagine that that's not fun to play with. And then as soon as I got those responses, I looked at she wasn't my fiance yet then, but I was like, oh my god, could you imagine living every day with somebody who makes you feel like you could and should be doing more, like you're never quite living up to their expectations. And so then I had to learn to start just straight up celebrating people more, instead of thinking in what I thought positively was like a coach mindset of,
Mhm.
yeah, I as a good leader, I can help you become the best version of yourself, instead of how do I celebrate who you are right now and you'll take yourself to the next place, you know. That
Yeah.
was a really really important exercise for me that I encourage everyone to do, even the bad breakups. Like, hey, no, we haven't talked since last season when we're not playing together anymore. But I just want to know, what do you think? Like, what's the skill that you think I'm weakest at, and what was the worst part about playing with me? And you'll get some. I think a lot of people would get very surprising answers, but that's a
Yeah.
terrifying exercise because not one of them said, "What was the worst part about playing with me?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, once you
But
opened it up
so
one way, it didn't come back the other way, and you're just like,
yeah,
"Alright, cool. If you don't wanna know, then that's fine."
that's exactly what we were talking about earlier though, is like that is being vulnerable because that's definitely gonna be something hard to hear.
Mm,
And something again, like you said, that might not be like reciprocal. It's obviously like easier if you're like, oh, this is a mutual exercise. We're both gonna, tell each other the shit that's going on. It's harder when it's one way for sure. And it's exactly what we talked about with like you never you don't know what you don't know. And like judging people for what they don't know is just stupid. That's just point never gonna like be able to read somebody's mind. You're never gonna be and no one should expect to read your mind. So the fact that like you went out of your way to develop awareness, which is what we talked about earlier. So now probably in a match, in a live match, you are probably able to be like, I'm doing the thing where I'm setting expectations really high. I can see my partner struggling because of it, and I can change now because I know it. And you
mm,
couldn't do that before because you didn't even know it was happening.
right,
So
yeah,
pretty powerful.
it is. It's crazy powerful. And it's nice to be able to realize that, to, like, hold certain things back that have become automatic for yourself and say, like, maybe it doesn't have to be automatic. I still have a line, I still like, with Dave in this last tournament, at some point, he didn't peel once, didn't peel twice, on very offsets, and on the last one, I let him have it. I was like, "You have to
Mhm,
get off the net at that," and I didn't let go of it, but then I let him know right away. I was like, "Ready for the
mhm.
next point?" But, like, let's peel. We're gonna get points. Everybody's weak. It's too windy, and they're gonna hit deep. So let's get out of there. But
Mhm.
he did get a couple blocks by staying. It's just I felt we could control the ball a little bit more if we were, peeling in some situations. But I would have years ago, I would have been like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Or I would have stayed
Yeah.
quiet to make sure that he was happy. You know, I
Yeah.
would have done that.
Yeah.
But then by me staying
To not
quiet
rock
and
the
not
boat.
saying anything, then he would, yeah, you don't rock the boat. But
Mhm.
then you get this tension of you're like, he's still not getting it. He's still not getting it because you haven't told him.
Said anything.
You haven't
Yeah.
shared what you expected or said, "Do you think you should peel there? Do you think that's an
Yeah, so
option?"
I actually think that is a more interesting way to do it. Not that I'm great at it myself, so I'm very similar to you and in that way,
Mm,
of like I'm either like telling it all or just holding back completely. But I think the way that I've tried to approach it is like as much as I might know the person I'm playing with and know their game really well, I don't know it as well as they know it. And I'm sure there's a reason why they're staying or not, to use your example, like, you know, Dave knows his own game better than you know his game. So like I wonder what and it's tough because in an actual tournament situation, it's like you have like seconds to communicate this, right? So
mm,
there's not always time for this, but like and so I'm kind of trying personally this year is one of the things I'm working on is like trying to find the ways and like the speed and the timing and whatever of like having these little conversations because at the end of the day in these tournaments you're like not making the main draw by like 2 points pretty much every time. So like to get that 1 point where you do pull and you do get the thing or he does stay but he does it differently, like that is a difference in a match and that's the difference in maybe your career because
mm,
like 2019 like best year on the AVP so far, right? The only reason 2019 was my best year and the only reason I made the finals in 2019 was because I won by 2 points in the qualifier. So like if those 2 points had gone a different way, I might never have made a main draw.
mm.
I might never have developed points. So it's like really it can change your career. And so I wonder like how and I'm curious what you think too, but like if you some way are like the intention of the question is my perception is this is not working. You probably have a good reason why you're staying and you know the game really well too. Like, why are you staying and what are you trying to get out of it? And like, let's agree on a plan together based on my strengths too, you
Mm.
know? And I don't know how to communicate that very quickly yet, but something I'm working on because especially when you play with a bunch of different people, like I might go show up at like I'm Austin. I've never played with Katie Spieler in my life. So we're gonna show up and like have to do this
Just
really
dance.
fast,
Just gonna show up and dance.
Yeah. So, I think it's a really huge part of the sport that's something that we can, all get better at for sure.
Yeah, we kind of take it over. We have this little form that partner profile that it makes you define certain plays. So it says like you actually have to name and describe your exact set height. Do you like it a certain how many feet off the net do you want it? How far from the setter do you want it? What about in transition? Do you like to come back and be fast, or do you like everything to slow down in transition? We give people that on the partner profile, but I think first of all having that conversation beforehand and just both go through a one-page exercise of describe your set to me and not
Mhm.
kind of with you, I want to stay close. Learn to describe your actual set
Yeah.
as if like it had it was a flow chart on an architect's scheme, right?
Yep.
I need inches. How high above the antenna do you actually want it? Because Dave said uh, top of the antenna, and I set him a few balls, and he's like higher, higher, higher. I was like, okay, so you want this ball 4 balls above the top of the antenna? Like that's your antenna ball.
Yeah.
And so that's one kind of way to describe it. But I think the what do you think here? What do you think in this situation?
Mhm.
Um, Especially as soon as it's exposed. But as a player, you need to have the main things as a conversation out of the way before you play. Do you want to run faster or slower in transition? Do you want to peel more or block more? Do you know anything about this player? I like the do you know anything about this player?
Yeah.
Have you ever beaten them in some situations? Uh,
I would actually change those to more open-ended questions if it were me. I would say, "What do you know about this player?" because that's the only way to answer that question is to
Great.
provide information, and asking, "Do you know anything?" is like, "No, I don't." It's
Mm.
like, "Really? You know nothing?" Like, I don't believe you.
It's been 8 years on tour, like
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. It's like asking me like, it's if I come, like, and say, "Hey, Mark, did you have a good day?" It's
mhm,
well, if I say yes, then I had a good day, and if I say
mhm,
no, then I had a bad day. But what if I didn't have either?
right.
So now I'm, like, stuck. Can you just ask me, like, "How was your day?" And then I can tell you what I want, you know? I think
Yeah,
open-ended questions in these situations can be, like, really helpful.
yeah. "What'd you do for lunch?" Start at least some kind of information flow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, that's for me at least. Coming with new partners, it's about having those talks first, and then literally dialing the set in. I think the most important part
Mhm.
is going to be the set, because that's your 8, 9 out of 10. So you have to know situationally, like, okay, but if you pass off the net, I know what you want in a perfect when we're doing hitting lines. I know like
Mhm.
what you want there. But what if you pass at half court? What if you pass 2/3 back into the court? Are you going to flow
Totally.
outside, or are you still going to stay narrow? So that's why when I show up with a new partner, I'll catch the ball, and I'll say, okay, pass me at half court, pass me at 3/4 court. Where do you want this one? Where do you want this
Mhm.
one? And I'll say, pass me to the antenna. Are you going to follow me all the way, or do you want me to keep pushing that? Because I can push it if
Yeah,
you want. So
yeah.
just tackling those kind of everyday situations quick and
Mhm.
establishing a general rule for that is a very good thing. But
Yeah,
all of these people who say, no, that was perfect. Oh, that was a great set, just like that. You need to tell me why it
yeah,
was a great set. What about it? What numerical values made it a 10 out of 10? And
yeah.
personally, I love playing with Adam Roberts. Um,
He's great at that.
that's his main question, and I picked
Yeah.
that up from him, and I use it with every partner. He goes, "Was that a 10 out of 10? Was it a 9 out of 10? Was it an 8 out of 10? What would make it a 10?" And
Mhm.
that's like that series of questions is what he goes through after he sets you, and you're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, okay." So he really gets to know it, and
yeah.
and I've stolen that from him completely.
Again, another benefit of playing with different people. You get little tidbits like that.
Well, yeah, man, we didn't get to too much volleyball, but in a way, this is everything volleyball.
Yes.
I do just want to ask you one question, just for the people who are out there and training and want to be like you. What are you? What weaknesses are you currently working on, and how are you trying to fix them in your game?
Um, I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to do in my game is really almost what we've been talking about this whole time is, like, really just trying to play more authentically to me. I think I found myself, like, giving up control of my career to other people for different reasons, and, like, um really stopped being myself on the court to try to make it work with people, like with different partner situations. And I think the only thing that left me with is like a lack of confidence in myself because I'm
Mm,
not myself on the court. So like how am I supposed to like play my best when I'm not like feeling like I can be myself? And so getting back to being myself and playing, I think the coolest part about this sport is like there is so many cool ways to play and you can be so creative and you can be so basic. Like you can be Phil
mhm.
and Nick and set a sky ball to each other for years, for like 9 years and still be really successful. Or you can be the Swiss, boys that are new to town and like jump setting and running the indoor offense. And like there's
Yep.
so many different ways to succeed. um, so, I think my biggest weakness right now that I'm working through is like just rebuilding a little bit of like lack of self-trust in my volleyball career.
Mm,
Um, and I think, there's a lot of very valid reasons where I lost that trust and where I lost my way a little bit. And I think this is like the first year that I felt as confident in my preparation as I used to. I think the pandemic obviously threw all of us off, and this is like my first year really feeling like I had the off seasons like I used to have, like the training, the weightlifting, the like everything else in my life, kind of stability that I needed to like feel confident in myself.
yeah.
And I think I learned a lot in the last couple years having that lack of stability in our sport, about what I needed, which, you know, take it or leave it. It would have been cool without it, but I learned a lot about myself with it.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, and I think a lot of the conversations we had there is exactly what I'm working on. Like I think a lot of people I've played with in the last year probably wouldn't even be able to give me a accurate answer to what you asked your old partners, like what's the worst part about playing with me, because like I don't even know if I would like want to ask them, because it I don't even feel like I played like myself when I played with
Mm,
them. You know,
yeah.
it's been an interesting new thing that I've never really had to deal with in my career. I've always like kind of unashamedly played like myself with, you know, whatever I bring to the court that day. So it's been interesting. And it's taken a lot of new approaches to the game that I haven't really like done before. You know, I haven't really been the kind of person to um like do a lot of in practice self reflection or like take notes or whatever.
Okay.
And I've been doing a lot more of that this year because uh, I needed what we've talked about in this conversation. I really needed that awareness, and I really needed perspective. So it took me like bringing in a coach that I really trust. Pre Lima has we've had like a really crazy relationship over the last 8 years where we've like hated each other, not talked to each other, worked together, and now she's like really been one of the most important people to like bring me back to playing like myself, which I'm really thankful for. So yeah, I'm excited. I feel like I like season is kind of just starting, but I really feel like I've played a lot of tournaments already where I've like worked
Mhm.
through a lot of it. So I'm really excited for Austin next week and to get a chance to like be on the court on a big stage where I'm like fully playing like myself. I'm pretty excited about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you were to, I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there, and every time I say that on that podcast, it's because it's what I think. So I'm sure there are a lot of people out there uh, that go through the process of trying to figure out what type of player they actually are or should be. You know,
Mhm.
should I be hyped up all the time? Should I be the guy that has the chip on my shoulder? Should I just sleepwalk and chill? Should I be the guy who fires my partner up all the time? And discovering that is, I think, a difficult process because you guess, you don't measure. So you say like, you know what, I'm going to be all hyped up today, and then you don't actually go back after that day and measure your performance. Say, all right, when I was completely rowdy, was I hitting better? Was my side out better? If I embrace this personality for however long, what was my actual play like? So for you, my question would be, how does somebody, you said reflection, you gave us one tool, but how does
Mhm.
somebody discover and try to play like themselves?
I mean, I think that's a on and off the court process for sure. I think you can measure it. I think it's like it's just whether or not you're like winging it or whether or not you're actually having a plan, you know? It's like it's not really an experiment if I don't measure it and plan for it, like and have like the like so this is something that I talk to some of the girls that I train with all the time. Like you should be using practice to practice being the person you want to be in a game
Mm,
and practice. So, you know, there's been practices where, like, you know, if your coach is like on you and you are like a hot mess and you're like, you need to leave me alone, like, I need space, whatever. And they're not. And they're just like, "Duh, duh, 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 duh." And it's like, honestly, I've been in a match where the crowd was doing that to me. So I'm not going to stop my coach from doing that to me. I'm going to take a second to be like, okay, I've been in this situation before. I've watched myself react in this way.
mm,
This time I'm going to try like doing a variety of things. Like you could try hugging your partner after every play. That you could try, you know, going on your knees and cheering to the crowd after every play. You could try just like having chit chat like in the whole play and just being like kind of like obnoxiously over it, you know, or you could try being like tunnel vision. Like it's
yeah.
like having like actually making it a plan, committing to it and doing it for like a period of time and then being like you said, like, how did I feel about how I played? I don't even know if I would say, like, did I pass better or like, did I hit better? Because you can't control all of those things
Mm,
necessarily. You can control though, and like your confidence level can be in a certain place. So I think I would probably personally measure it by like my confidence level of like when I did this, I felt like myself and I was like, I can play like myself. Cause even when I'm playing like myself, it's not always like my best, you know, but at
yeah.
least I'm like present. So
Right. I think that's got to be so hard, It's such a challenge, but it's so hard to have a situation that you're used to just having an emotional reaction to, and instead treating it as if, you're untying a knot. Like, should I pull this side? Should I pull this side? Should I like dig it with my nails or my teeth? You know,
Mhm.
taking this thing that you hate feeling, you're mad or you're angry or you just want to kill whoever's talking or whoever's next to you, and saying, huh, the emotions right now are a problem that I can solve. So how do I make this situation different, or how do I change myself here so that I'm not just being emotionally reactive and that I'm actually controlling the next step? I think that's huge. I think that's probably the biggest challenge for
Yeah,
most
which is
people.
why I think beach volleyball, one of the requirements to be a really good player in beach volleyball is emotional intelligence. I mean, I think people underestimate, like, that is not something that you should only be practicing on the court. Like, if you're having an like, if I come home and I'm having an argument with my husband, like, okay, I'm gonna do the same thing. Like, I'm gonna realize that I'm getting upset. Like, I'm gonna be like, what did I make for myself as a plan to try when I'm upset this way? I'm gonna do it and like see what happens. Did I like
Mm,
it? Did I feel like it worked out? Like it's not something like people say all the time, like there's those players who are like acting when they play, and you're like, this guy's such a dick when he's on the court, but off the court, he's such a cool guy. And I'm
mm.
like, I just don't believe that. Like,
What?
I think who you are is who you are. And I think if you choose to play like someone who is a dick sometimes on the court, like, and that works for you, that's awesome. And I'm not going to be one to judge you for that. I don't
Mm.
think that necessarily makes you a bad person. Like, but I think it is how you handle situations. Like, if I were to push you emotionally off the court, I can have a good guess about how you're going to respond, in my
Wow. I
opinion.
completely disagree. I take a look at like the field of battle as that's who they are in that situation.
But you're not just battling on the court, like, you battle off the court too.
Yeah, but those are completely different types of battles. Like I'm not going to get in a hand-to-hand combat the same way that I would play Monopoly. Like there's going to be a very different level of reaction there, and I think that part of like the beauty of sport is also that it is part acting. Like you get to choose your character on the court. And maybe you're right in saying that, okay, at some point you have to play like yourself, who you are, but maybe your basketball self, your tennis self, your volleyball self is incredibly different than your living room self.
So, I'm not saying on day to day. I'm saying when you get pushed to the point where it's make or break on the court, I don't think that you're a different person that you are off the court, on the court. So, like, I
Mm,
would ask you if you feel like when you last time you had an argument with somebody that was really important to you and there was
mhm.
like a huge disagreement. I wonder how much you feel like you were acting in that moment versus just letting yourself be however you felt like being.
I felt like I had controlled the reactions.
Is controlling the reaction not acting? I mean,
Yeah.
because I think when I've gotten upset before, I could just let myself be like, "Screw you," like, it would feel so good to just, like, let it all out, and rah, that person. Or I could act because I
Hmm.
know that I know what would happen if I let myself fully let go, and that's not the reaction I wanna have. So, same on the court to me is that, like, I could react in a certain way, but I might not get what I want. So,
Mm,
like, for example, there's been games where I've played, like, girls coming out of college and they're hot and they're emotional and they, like, feed off of your anger. And so the first time I played some girls that used to play in college, like, they pissed me off, their parents were super annoying, so I was like, "Okay, I can play that game." So
mhm,
I was giving it to them, we were going back and forth. Oh my god, they were, like, playing the best volleyball they've ever played in their lives. Second time I played them, I was like, "I wonder what's gonna happen if I'm just, like, so fucking friendly the whole match." So before the match, I just, like, went and sat and chatted next to them, and I was like, not like it's I don't actually want to, like, get to know them. Like, everybody in
mhm,
the beach volleyball world's cool, but, like, I wanna control how they're gonna act on the court. So,
mhm.
in between side switches, I'm, like, high-fiving them, like, "God, that was a great swing." And, like, man, they did not have the energy they had the last time I played them. So,
Mhm.
I feel like it's acting, and I certainly I believe that I do that when I'm, like, in any way, like getting put in a position where I might not, who you let yourself be and who you choose to be is the difference between, I feel like, acting and not.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
choosing to be someone I think can still be authentic.
it can be. Yeah, because I think like chameleons can be authentic. You know,
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
Who is it? Trevor Noah, I think he talked about that. He's like, yes, like I can be essentially, he's like, he said, I can be like black when I'm black with my South African friends.
Yeah.
I can be a talk show host, a celebrity talk show host. I can be somebody that tears you apart because I believe what you're doing is wrong. And I will put you like to a point. And he's like, the power of a chameleon is probably one of the most, it should be feared the most,
Yeah.
because you can slide into any environment and do and get what you want,
Yeah.
because of your ability to change.
But
So,
I think that can be authentic. I think that everyone has all of these, like, it's like how you can have like a bunch of different kinds of best friends. It's like I
hmm
have a best friend who's my day-to-day person and we can like go to the grocery store together, or like I have my best friend who I could take a badass trip with and we can have a great time, or like I can tell this friend about these things. It's like you have different colors of your personality that like manifest in different ways, and I think that's like exactly it. It's like I can choose to pull out what part of my personality like I need, but I don't think that that changes based on this.
hmm
Like, I don't think it changes who you are. I don't think Trevor Noah's a different person because he's acting differently with his black friends than he is with his white friends.
right.
He's still the same person,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
right. Yeah, yeah. To be determined on if the person on the court and their personality there is the same as the person off the court. To me, I've always let people be whoever they want to be on a court, and I
Hmm.
will not judge them until I'm not seeing them compete, and seeing, and feeling their competition against me.
Hmm.
Like I know that people will be a jerk to me on a court, and I'll definitely be a jerk to them on a court. But I don't treat people like that socially.
Yeah, but you're in a different environment, but it's still you. Like, if you needed that part of your personality in a social situation, I think you would do it, if
Could
there
I
was
go to
some
that?
reason.
Yeah, I could definitely go to that. Yeah, if I
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah. Like if you needed to stand up for yourself, somebody else, or like be like, nah, this is not happening, or like fight for some reason, like that's life. So,
Mhm.
in my opinion, it's just like part of who you are. But, now I think it's like gonna be a grander philosophical volleyball question
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
some different opinions on.
Love to hear from anyone who's listening. If there's a comment section anywhere on this, do you think this is for the audience out there? Do you think that the way somebody competes on their court, whatever sport it is, do you think that that is an accurate reflection of who they are as a person and how they would react interpersonally? I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts. So if you guys want to check that into the comments and share some stories and share some opinions, would love
Yeah.
to hear about that and see some different things. So go ahead, everybody, start typing on this. Mhm.
Yeah, that's it. I'm interested to see what different people think about that.
Yeah, we'll be.
Yeah.
Kim, I gotta thank you. This is one of the most awesome talks I've had in a long time. Absolute pleasure to get to know you a little bit more, to hear your expertise and your thoughts and opinions, and your knowledge on all of the interpersonal skills and your volleyball path. And we didn't really even dive into like the whole like 15 questions that I sent you ahead of
I
time.
know.
That's why I said like when we loosely converse around those questions, I was like, it's very loose.
Yeah, hey, I'm
um,
here for good conversations anytime. I think it was super interesting to hear. I always think it's interesting to hear different perspectives on this stuff for sure.
yeah. Well, love to have you on again. If you have anywhere where people should reach out to you, we'd love to share it with our audience.
Yeah, my website's listed on the bottom of the screen here. Healthcoachingwithkim.com is a great way to kind of learn more about my business and what I do. And I do a lot of mindset and life and health coaching. It's kind of like all one because I believe that people are, like kind of what we were just saying. Like I really believe that every part of you is connected. So if you're struggling with your nutrition or the way that you're moving is usually like why people come to me in the first place. In my experience, a lot of the reasons why is because there's other stuff in your life that really isn't like aligned and going well. And I think I'm pretty good at helping people problem solve that. So that's kind of what I do for a living. I do one-on-one coaching. Sometimes I do group coaching or team coaching if anybody's interested. It's the cool thing about having your own business is it gets to be whatever you want it to be. So
Mhm.
I've had a lot of fun with that. And
And
Instagram's always available. Yeah.
for those who are listening and not being able to see the screen, it's healthcoachingwithkim.com. Everything
True.
is spelled exactly how you would expect it to be spelled. Healthcoachingwithkim.com. Okay. And your Instagram?
My Instagram is just Kim_Hildreth. Has a link to my um, company on there as well. And you're happy to respond to DMs from anybody. That's how I do a lot of my coaching and outreach for people too. So yeah, those are my two mains right there.
Awesome. Kim, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great day and good luck this season. Kick some butt.
Thanks.
Looking
You too.
forward to seeing you play some Kim Hildreth volleyball.
Me too.
Awesome. Have a great day.